Hello, welcome to the new video of this beautiful new brew. Uh, you can just think how nice would it be if this deck was tier 1 in modern. It's a blast to play it, and I finally find a version which is pretty playable currently at modern, and it's the dream of Shardless agent hitting the ancestral vision in the pure value deck. So almost every card in the deck is 2 for 1. So Iceland Kotal is clear 2 for 1, draws you a card, can trade with a creature, even a big one, even the Murktide. Stoneforge, get your equipment in hand. Ancestral Visions, draw your cards. Esper Sentinels, kind of always draws a card or immediately gets removed. Um, Shardless Agent, another clear 2 for 1. And Teferi also bounces, draws a card, and these spells are all 1 power, 2 power, and they bring a lot of value, especially Ancestral Vision when you hit it with the Shardless. In order to make the deck playable, I added a lot of free spells in the deck. So there are 4 Force of Negations, 4 Solitudes, 2 Subtleties, so 10 spells we can play for free, and which makes our deck function with 3 mana if needed. 4 is ideal, and 5 in late game, but since deck has so much draw, lands are really not a problem, and you always have a lot of them. So uh, another card we are playing here is Eldritch Evolution, two Eldritch Evolutions, and it's mostly used to sack our Shardless Agent, to find our one of Titania Protector of Argot, which then ramp us and give me tokens, which can finish the game pretty quickly. Or another target is obviously Solitude, uh, which is also great at just continuing your tempo when you have Stoneforge Mystic in play and trying to kill your opponent as quickly as possible. You can remove some threat that is obstructing you and just continue attacking. Um, Also, one of Questing Beast is also a target for Eldritch Evolution. You can sack Stoneforge Mystic to it after it's done its job, put Kadra onto battlefield, or you can just sack Icefang Kotal. Uh, Questing Beast does 4 damage with haste. It also has vigilance and death touch, so it can block on counter attack from opponent, and it can also kill our opponent's planeswalkers with its ability and haste. It's another one-off that we can tutor in some situations when needed, when we're trying to when for example, if we already put Kadra into play with Stoneforge, the turn after we can Eldritch Evolution the Stoneforge into Beast and just immediately attack for 9. It has sort of evasion too, so it's kind of difficult to block it. And that's it. That are our one-offs, and the last one-offs which we tutor, and the last one-off is a Brazen Borrower. As we kind of lack removal and deck just 4 solitudes, we have 3 bounces, 2 Teferis, and 1 Borrower. Also, subtleties. Subtleties can be used to slow our opponents down if they're playing creatures, and I'm pretty satisfied with how this deck functions, and it's really great experience to play it. So we have 22 lands. All neo lands are here: Busiju, Eiganjo, and Otawara. A lot of basics because of the Ice Fang, and because the mana base is not so needy. We can. I didn't have any problems with mana so far. Also, one Snowland duel. On the sideboard, we have some graveyard hate, some disputes, some artifact enchantment hate, another collector trophy, another artifact gate, and another two endurances for graveyard hate, one Teferi against the controls, cascade decks, and three meddling mages, primarily for combo decks, but also against Living End, Footfalls, Crashing Footfalls, um, Glimpse, Amulet Titan. It's also usable against Tron, um, and a lot of other decks really. So it's a really nice cyber piece for this kind of creature-based decks. And so I've just played two leagues with this deck so far. First league ended up 3-2, and after some tweaks, I played another league, finished 4-1. I'm pretty excited for this deck. I'll definitely play it more, try to see how hard it is to do the 5-0 with it, and we'll just now check out the 4-1 league I played before. Okay, I was really close to 5-0ing this last league, but I made one one small misplay, one game that probably cost me the game. Uh, unfortunately, lost that game. Okay, so I'm playing here against Ron. Game one, I had decent hands, two force of negations. My opponent had natural charm from hand, so just they didn't have to tutor for their lands, just had it. I had two forces, so I was able to play my Shardless, find my Stoneforge, find another sword, and just try to put some pressure on the field. Opponent did have Dismember main. I decided that I'll counter these ancient stirrings before they find something. They found Wormcoil, so they weren't able to. I wasn't able to attack here. But I find a white card to exile in Solitude, so I was able to start attacking again. But at this point, they had a lot of lands there. I did have force for Ugin, but they found Ulamog, and I did have another Solitude for Ulamog, but I needed the white card and the lands to equip Sword, uh, but I didn't get anything. No land and no white card, so that was it, game one. Could have played differently, but I think I would lose this game anyway, so uh, that was it. Okay, so game two, playing first, I drew a Collector Trophy, which is a great card against Tron. They play Expedition maps, they play 8 spheres, which cycle for green mana. I was able to then play my Stoneforge turn 3. They were unable to sack their expedition map, and Collector Trophy really showed so far as great, really great card in this matchup. As you can see here, one sphere, star, expedition map, all are unusable. I found the blue cards, so I was able to put my Kadra into field and get a very good clock, and that was it. Okay, so I was looking for a same strategy game 2, and I had the Collector Trophy in the hand. It's a bit weaker when you're playing second, because your opponent still can succeed to play Expedition Map turn 1 and crack it before you play Oof. My opponent did find the Karn, but I was able to attack Karn so they can't use the ability again, and they were unable to play their spells from hand, so I was able to kill Karn and play both my Ice Fangs end of turn. And then I was able to play my Titania to make a really good clock here. Also had Questing Beast in hand, and I was able to just play my Questing Beast, bounce their Ensnaring Bridge, and that was lethal for this game, and that was game 1. Okay, we will leave this game for the end. We will check out the wins first. Okay, had to mulligan the one-lander. I kept kind of awkward hand here. No early plays, but it drew subtlety. This was a very weird deck. It's a living end deck, but also a crushing footfalls deck. So very weird. Post board they played both living end and crushing footfalls. So it was kind of hard to sideboard and to play against it, but I did succeed to win. It was a pretty interesting game. All 3 games were kind of interesting. They did living end, but it's not a usual living end deck, and they also play dispute main, so a lot of weird stuff. I was still in decent position. I was able to attack with Beast here and then trade with Riverwinder next turn. Also had the Teferi in hand to bounce the Curator. Unfortunately, they had the Bone Crusher, so I was very close to little damage here. They decided to attack my Teferi and exile my graveyard, and I didn't draw. I drew into Ice Fang and played my sword, prepared for Titania next turn, which would stabilize me greatly. But my opponent had everything they had living end. I'm not sure if they play footfalls in main, or I don't know, or it's just a post-cyber thing, probably post-cyber thing. So they hit another living end, and that was too much. For me, I mulliganed on 5, game 2. I kept Force, Dispute, and Agent. I drew into Meddling Mage and of course named the Living Ant because at this point I still didn't know that my opponent is playing Footfalls in the deck. So I attacked first and then played my Shardless. Got Ancestral Vision, drew 3 cards, which is pretty good. At least I thought so, because I had Middling Mage on Living End here, but then my opponent plays Shardless. Luckily I had Force, so I was able to force the Footfalls. Then I drew into another Middling Mage and I named Footfalls with it. But since I attacked with my Meddling Mage, because I thought that they boarded out all their living ends, and I think they did. I decided that it's best to just play my another Shardless because I was sure they just playing Footfalls this game because they didn't do any cycling with their creatures. And they also suspended another Footfalls, and they had only one card in hand at this point, so I was able to play my third Meddling Mage on Footfalls, but I couldn't attack. Couldn't attack here. I decided to go for block with both Shardless and Ice Fang. My opponent had Besieged to kill one Shardless, but that was fine. Shardless didn't mean much here. I drew into a Ganjo, which is a pretty decent draw here. I was able to play my Ganjo and get my subtlety in case they play something. Okay, yeah, and the subtlety was great because they played Endurance and I was able to top it so they don't shuffle in their Footfalls. So everything, all the Footfalls got exiled, and I was able to attack with my Meddling Mage, put them on 7 life. But still pretty close game. I couldn't attack here because they drew Endurance again. Um, I didn't have anything at this point. I had to pass the tree, and they had their Bone Crusher in exile, played it. I drew into Dispute, which wasn't very great at this moment, but it was kind of insurance that I will trade with this Bone Crusher and my Subtlety. Endurance put me on 3 life, so didn't have anything here, so I decided best to attack and stay on 1 life. Try to draw something. I did draw something. I attacked again because I had Dispute in hand and drew into a Tawara. So my opponent, I had blocked with Ice Fang and then bounced the Endurance because they didn't play land for a few turns. So I decided if they don't play land, I would be able to dispute their endurance and win the game. Uh, unfortunately, they didn't. They bounced my questing beast, but I had dispute for their borrower, and that was it because I had the questing beast in hand to end the game next turn. And game 3 was even weirder because my opponent had both Footfalls and Living End in deck. So obviously they started cycling, so I wanted to go for Meddling Mage and Living End as quickly as possible. They killed it, but having just one creature in the grave means they can't do much with Living End here, and I was able to return my Meddling Mage. They returned their Widower, but it's really not that relevant. Just one River Winder, and I got my Meddling Mage again on the table. I succeeded to cast my Endurance, and I was holding my Ice Fang. So they attack, and I get the touch on both my Ice Fangs. I block with one. If they kill another, both lose their touch, but it was fine. My opponent tapped out to play the Rhinos, but I had Solitude here, which is definitely the best to kill it Rhino immediately, and if they attack, I could just trade with my Ice Fang. They did find solution for Rest in Peace, and but it's kind of hard for them to fill their graveyard. I had a very good hand, Force, Dispute, Teiganjo, a lot of stuff here. I was able to dispute their Curator of Mysteries, played another land, holded Force, holded Endurance, Teiganjo, so all cards very good. Didn't want to cast anything. I just cast my Shardless, find another Meddling Mage named Footfalls. And I was able to attack here because they didn't have a double green to cast Endurance. And when they tapped out, I decided it's best to play my Endurance and exile their graveyard in case they try to do the Living End thing. And it's pretty hard for them to fill their graveyard. I thought they'd probably have Endurance in hand, but I attacked with my Shardless anyway. It's not important losing this Shardless. I wanted to get my get the damage through, and if they tap out, I was able to play my Teferi, bounce Kotal, drew into Evolution, find Solitude. Unfortunately, they had Fury, which kind of complicated things, but not too much. I was still in a pretty decent position. I had to let this Fury deal damage, and then step I played both Ice Fangs, and next turn their foot was about to resolve, so I had to play my Force to counter it, and also holding Endurance to block the Fury. So a pretty good situation for me, unless they have disputes, but they didn't. I think they didn't have it. Oh yes, sorry, they did have it here. But still, having two blockers, having Stoneforge in hand, holding Force of Negation, a pretty good situation for me. So at this point, I could only lose if they cycled the Rex on Fury, give it trample, so I decided to block with both Ice Fangs, and I decided uh, to risk here because I drew Solitude and attacked with both and end the game immediately, and that was it. Okay, so that was the second win. Okay, so exiling Vision turn 1 uh, can end up being very good if you survive long enough to resolve it, and this deck is made to survive until at least until end of turn 5 against these kind of decks. It's pretty good against the Murktide Grixis, and it's decent against 4-color Omelette. It's worse against the Vivian, a version of Omelette, and it's best against the non-elemental 4-color Omelette. I had a lot of good spells for this part of the game, and I was about to resolve my vision, so they had to counter it, which means I was able to play my spell if I draw a land, and I did draw it. So just casting Solitude here, very good, puts me in a great position, and having a strong hand with another Solitude, Battle Subtlety, all very very good cards for this for the late game. I wasn't able to attack here, but I just cast my Butterskull and hold the Subtlety for next turn. Um, just attacking with the Butterskull, very good against Grixis, gaining a lot of life, playing my Titania, and my opponent conceded on Titania cast. This deck really proved to be very good against Grixis. I played 3 times against Grixis in these 2 leagues and won every time so far. I was able to play my second Sentinel this game. It's definitely a problem for them. They had have a lot of non-creature spells and had to use a lot of mana to pay these taxes. They tried to trade with the channel a few times. Definitely didn't want to lose my Sentinels. They seem pretty important here. I tried to go for Titania again, but they did have the Drown. So I just lost the Shardless, but Shardless is really not, doesn't matter that much. So, so I played the Butterskull next turn. And I kind of had a feeling that my opponent is going to try to play the dress down, and they had to play the Texas first, so they tapped out. I let all that resolve and played my force, killed their shadow, gain 4 more life, and drew into another Titania, which ended the game. These Sentinels are definitely a great problem for them. They probably shouldn't pay that much mana when casting iteration. Probably should let me draw at least one card. But I was in a pretty good situation here. They also played iteration pre-combat, so they had to attack with Channeler, and they just attacked with everything, and that was it. That was third win, and the last win was against four-color Omnat, the non-elemental version. I played first game one, suspended my ancestral vision. First turn, it can be pretty good against Omnat, the vision. Okay, so had a decent hand against Omnat, subtlety, force, Teferi, vision on suspend, Ice Fang. All these cards are all very good. Against it, so I just attacked for one, played my Shardless, hold my force, hold subtlety, hold solitude, find my Caldra. They played Ice Fang end of turn, tried to play Iteration, but I forced it, exiled subtlety, hold my solitude in the case they try to play Omnat, but Teferi was the best play here when they're tapped out, and they conceded on Teferi. That was game one. Game two, playing second, definitely a lot harder. First hand, two equipments in hand, unkeepable, so mulligan to 6. Kind of awkward hand, but it can turn out to good hand. They didn't have a Bran, which is very helpful. They went Jamis into Omnat. I didn't play anything else. I didn't have the mana needed to play Omnat, so they tapped out to put Urine into hand, and I was able to play my Endurance, attack with Endurance, and again sack it to Eldritch Evolution to find my Titania, which is how I win a lot of games, and that was it. Quick wins against four-color Omnat. Okay, so we will see one more game against Omnat, but it's a Vivian combo version, and I was doing real good against it, and did one misplay that probably cost me a game. Okay, so had two forces in hand, so I decided to go Shardless, find my Stoneforge, which is pretty good hit. I did try to play Teferi, but I countered it, exiled another Shardless. I decided to again go for Titania, make a token, and then find the land and put Kaldra into play, attack immediately, a very good turn, putting 15 power on table, puts them into awkward spot, also holding force, and that was it. Won game 1, and I probably could have won the game 2. Okay, so game 2 was pretty tense and pretty interesting. Unfortunately, I got stuck on the 2 lands. If I didn't, I would surely win. If I at least got another land so I can play the Ice Fang, I would be in much better position here. So I knew it was Vivian as soon as I saw the Out of Nissa. Also, they play a different mana base than other Omna decks, so they tried to do the accomplice thing. I had Solitude here, uh, killed the accomplice, but they found the Vivian of the Hunt anyway, and had a pretty good ability. They succeeded to mill Karmic Guide, Accomplice, and Omnat in 5 cards, so that's the +1 ability, which is really amazing to get 3 strong creature cards from this ability at this point. Yeah, they were very lucky here. My vision was about to resolve next turn, and if I drew a land here, it would be very much better. I would be in very much better position than I was right now. But resolved my vision, so I was still in the game. I drew multiple lands. Um, okay, so I was definitely still in the game, and if I had one more land, I could have just played subtlety here instead of dispute, which would be much better. I would be able to start attacking sooner. I played my subtlety here, of course. They bottomed the Omnat because they didn't have a land in their hand at this point, and this was the misplay. I forgot. I attacked first. I remember that, but forgot to put fetch into play before finding Titania. So they had Solitude, and I didn't get my 5-3 token, which definitely cost me a game. Maybe I wouldn't win anyway, but um, I think I would have a much better chance, and I would be very close to winning if I got that token then. Okay, so played my Ice Fang, end of turn, find Eldritch Evolution, find Sword of Fire and Ice. I decided to go for Sword here. Attacked, but they had another Solitude, so very good draws from my opponent. They exiled third Solitude on the ability, so pretty good hands. And if I had the 5-3 token, I would probably trade with Relier here. So my opponent wouldn't get the 2 out of Nissa looks and wouldn't have Vivian in their hand at this point. So they found Vivian uh, with their second ability. I didn't have much choice. I could only play my Shardless, find the Stoneforge. So on next turn I would probably have lethal or very close to lethal. But they had the combo this turn, and yeah, that was it. Um, one misplay and some very good and lucky draws from my opponent. If I played it better and if my opponent wasn't this lucky, it would be the 5 oblique. But yeah, this kind of stuff happens all the time. Okay, so game 3 boarded in, rest in peace, to try to fight the combo. Probably shouldn't do that. If this was some better card, I would probably win. No, I would have, sorry, not win, but have a better chance. They had Wren in hand, so rest in peace turned out to be okay. Again, I got stuck on lands. Didn't have my third land, so pretty unlucky. And my opponent also got the accomplice turn 3. I had rest in peace, so they couldn't combo, but they found Solitude, put their Vivian on 6, leave it on the battlefield, and they can just start creating 4/4 tokens. And I was stuck on lands, so that was it. That was the loss, the final loss. Didn't really put any fight. Game 3, bad draws, mana screw. So that was it. That was the whole league. The deck is super fun to play. Real Shardless Valuetown, just hitting ancestral visions or suspending it turn 1 can be really good at this deck because it's built to survive until you resolve the ancestral vision and then continue grinding and outvaluing your opponent. It has so much value, as you can see, that it can even outvalue the Omnat decks. So, a pretty fun deck to play, and has a lot of solutions in Solitude, Forces, Subtleties, and Teferis, Brazen, also Eldritch into Titania, as you could see, is definitely very good here. Shardless is great target to sack the evolution, and that's it. This deck, I'm pretty happy with this build. I'm not going to change anything for now. I kind of think that Yagmoth matchup could be a bit awkward, but having subtleties, solitudes, forces in main, you can fight everything, and you have a chance against all decks. So, but I think hardest ones are quick combo decks like Storm, like maybe I don't know, maybe maybe Belcher. You have forces, and but after boarding meddling mages, that matchup gets a lot better. Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the games. I did very much, and it was very fun to play. And I'm just when you see this kind of deck, you are sorry that it's not. These kind of decks are not better positioned in format. But I think this deck is completely playable. It's great against Murktide. It's great against Grixis, and it's even game against 4-color Omnat, but I think it's a bit worse against the elementals version of 4-color piles, but I don't know which deck can outvalue the Rise and Reef, Rise and Reef 4-color pile, so that's probably the only deck this deck can't outvalue. So it's the pure value deck and a lot of free spells, so we can do something in early game with our card advantage and board advantage cards, and that's it. That's the video.